Thank you so much for joining to this live session. My name is Hamid Hassanzadeh. I'm the founder of Parametric Architecture platform on Instagram with more than 500,000 followers, and I'm your host today to accompany one of our great guests today. We have a great Japanese architect with us joining live from Tokyo. Kengo Kuma is a world-renowned architect with more than 300 projects in more than 20 countries, and his practice, Kengo Kuma, has offices in Paris and Tokyo. And Kengo Kuma has written extensively about architecture and architectural theory with books such as Anti-Object and A Small Architecture. And since 2009, Kengo Kuma has been a professor of architecture at the University of Tokyo. So just stay tuned with us. I will welcome dear Kengo Kuma to join to this live session. But before inviting Mr. Kengo Kuma to the live session, please type your questions in that question box down below. I will try to ask them from Kengo Kuma. So if you have any question, guys, we may close the comments. Just write your question into the question box down below, so I will ask from Kengo Kuma. Okay, let's start. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, dear Kengo Kuma.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining to this live session.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great an honor. It's great honor to speak with you. I'd like to pass the mic to you if you want to say hello to our audience.
Yeah, so now I'm in the Tokyo office, and I'm very happy to talk with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So to start our discussion and conversation, I would like to ask from you to introduce yourself, and you can just discuss a little bit about your story of becoming an architect.
Yeah, I have an office in Tokyo and Paris, Beijing, Shanghai, and I'm enjoying to work in different places.
That's great.
And the last 3 months, I couldn't travel to other countries. It's a very stressful period for me, but as I'm looking forward to coming back to the normal lifestyle. Anyway, but I want to start from my career as I was born 1954. At the age of 10 in 1964, as a father brought me to the gymnasium of Tokyo Olympic, designed by Kenzo Tange, and it was a very exciting moment.
Right.
It's really very different from other buildings in Tokyo, because in 1964, Tokyo still was the city of the low silt as wooden buildings, and then the Kenzo Tange was outstanding from those small buildings. As the shape was unique, and the structure was unique, and the interior was so unique. And on that day, I decided to become an architect. And but after that, there happened many things.
Right.
1970s, Osaka, as a first World Fair was exposition, and I of course as I wanted to see the buildings designed by Kenzo Tange, Kisho Kurokawa, and those metabolists, metabolism.
Right.
90s, 60s, and 1970s, metabolism movement was very as active as in Japan, and but when
what happened to that metabolism movement?
And metabolism movement was proposing the capsule building. They wanted to make the building like the machine, the
Right.
very vertical core and the capsules, and the idea is flexible architectures and as the body of animals. The body of animals, the cells, is always replacing, and but the bone and the blood pipes is still the stable, and then that kind of idea they try to apply to modern building.
Mm-hmm.
But the buildings I saw in World Exposition in Osaka, were very disappointing. And honestly saying,
Right.
because the idea was very unique, and but the reality was looks like the huge ugly machine, and then I after coming back to Osaka, I tried to find another direction from
Right.
the another direction from big machines, and and after the disappointing the moment, as I tried to find the new direction in the edge of the world. And then after that, I traveled a lot to the edge of the world. For example, I visited Sahara Desert in Africa.
Africa, right.
And then I found something unique in the villages of Sahara Desert.
Right.
Very different from metabolism, also very different from the old Japanese village. Old Japanese village is now I like that kind of village, but in 1970s, those villages looked like just nostalgic the theme park.
Exactly.
And then
Exactly.
after coming back from Sahara Desert, I slowly I tried to as a, as a create my own style, and
Then you started your own office, Kengo Kuma and Associates, or
uh,
before than that?
yeah, this was before that. Actually, as before starting my own office, as went to New York, as I studied in Columbia, I enjoyed the life in New York. But finally, I started my office 1985 in
Right.
Tokyo. I was very lucky because 1985 the Japanese economy was in booming era, and then I could get some commission as from some unique clients. As a, that is a, as a but as a after 1990 suddenly the Japanese bubble economy was bursted, and and then the the the, the, the second disappointment. So, and
Right.
I traveled to countryside of Japan, and as a, I, I began to work with craftsmen in countryside of Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and the, they were very humble, but the craftsmanship was really amazing. And then the 1990s is my as a dream my as a experience went together in 1990s, and I started to design some as a small wooden buildings with unique detail and with unique joint system, and that kind of the direction started in 1990s, and
Right.
then after year 2000, as a my method, as a my approach, as a as a, was understood by other countries. For example, China. I designed the bamboo house in China. This bamboo house in China was one of my favorite projects still. As a, and that kind of the small project outside of Japan started from year 2000.
Right.
Roughly, so my career was like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Actually, yeah, I've heard, I know this story actually. So Japan was one of the countries that hit by coronavirus and COVID-19. How did you reacted to this pandemic, and what do you think it will affect our lifestyles, our relationships, our future of architecture actually? How it's gonna affect?
Yeah, as a before this pandemic happened, I began to think as a architecture design should change because as in 20th century, as people tried to make as a the bigger as enclosed space, the
Right,
totally air conditioned, and that looks like very efficient. And there's bigger and bigger and the stronger, there's more air conditioned. That kind of as a as a as a as a, as a period should finish. I
mm-hmm.
think, and because in the big enclosed box, the people were enjoying efficiency, but outside of the box, this is totally uncontrolled, and the environmentally, it was a very bad system because the environment in the big box only controlled, and outside there's more CO2, the high temperatures, there's more gases. That kind of contrast has been destroying the globe.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Uh, I before the pandemic, I, I thought we should change that system. The, we should destroy big boxes, and then outside of big boxes, we should find the new human space, the worst to live, worst to work,
Exactly.
and the coronavirus, the finally the show us the ends of that system because in the enclosed box the as a, we couldn't survive because of the virus, and then in last 3 months I I tried to work outside of box. I want to stay more time outside of the box, and that kind of change the, was was a result of the pandemic, and
Right.
that sense pandemic was the big the chance for us. It's a disaster, but it's also was a big chance for us to change the design direction and design philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Yeah, definitely. The pandemic just enabled us the opportunities challenges, we can think about them, and maybe we can consider about them in our future designs, and maybe we can change the future, like for a better, to create for a better environment. So actually, I would like to ask about your projects. But before that, we see in your most projects that wood has a major material. Wood has a major role as a material in your buildings. And whoever visits these kind of buildings, the building just delivers a unique experience to its users. So I would like to ask, where does this love to wood comes from? And in projects like Sunny Hills at Minami Ayaoma and Nests We Grow and Odum Pazari, actually, how did you manage to use wood material in these projects?
Yeah, as a as a as a concrete was the only option for us in 20th century, because concrete was a material to create enclosed box, and then in the city, the volume of concrete box has been growing. But the wood was totally as the different the material, because wood is not to enclose the space. Wood is as a enhance us to flow and to move, and
Exactly.
is to separate, to cut, to enclose. But wood is to flows and the ventilation, the air, that kind of the natural phenomena was happened by wood, and that's the main reason why I use wood,
Mm-hmm.
and it's material for the circulation, because if we use wood as a we should use the wood from mountain,
Mm-hmm.
and then cutting the wood, the wig as a the grow wood in the forest, and then natural circulation was was began after we use wood. But concrete, it is out of natural circulation, and it's not part of nature. It is totally separated from nature. So wood is part of nature, and if I use wood, the building, the works of us, will become part of nature, and that is most important. And the use of wood is not coming from aesthetical reason. Aesthetically, wood is also very beautiful, I think, but
Right.
the main reason was coming from the environmental reason.
Exactly. Yeah, basically wood is a natural material and has more like observing like users, and it's more attractive than concrete, and that's a great view of points that you're using wood as a material in most of your projects. So I would like to ask specifically about Odun Pazarı project, which has recently opened in Odun Pazarı, Eskişehir in Turkey. And this project was formed of a cluster of boxes made from stacked interlocking timber beams. And would you please discuss a little bit about this project, and how was the process of designing, and how was the construction process was going while you were from away from Japan?
Yeah, it was as our first Turkish project, and as before as the project started,
Even in Middle
I
East, first Middle East project,
yes,
like
yes, first, yes, exactly, first Middle East
okay,
project. I love Istanbul very much, and I've been visiting Istanbul many times. the, that is a project happened not in Istanbul. It was happened in the Odem Pazar, as Eskişehir. And
Yes.
when I visited first time Eskişehir, it's totally different from Istanbul. The street is of it's maybe Osman Turkish era. The street of Osman Turkish era
Yes.
is very human. And the 2-3 story wooden buildings with the roof and the wooden frames, and most of buildings are wooden buildings. And it's reminds me of the old the street in the countryside of Japan. And
Right.
wow, we found the Buddha, there's a human there's a space is in Turkey the Turkey as well. And then as we try to create some harmony with that kind of Buddha houses. And but as a museum is not small museum. It is a not huge, but as a good sized museum, and then eventually we try to articulate the volume and to create the 6-7 boxes, and the boxes as a stacking and also creating the gap between boxes and by that kind of the method, we try to create a balance between the wooden houses and wooden boxes of museum, and also the assembly system of wood is creating ventilation. The not
Right.
solid wood, as a not cut exterior and interior. And that kind of as a relationship is also I found in Turkish building. So even in Istanbul, there's some ventilation happened in the stone building. That is Odam Pazar there are many buildings that still have that kind of ventilation. I love ventilation.
That's great. Actually, it's a unique masterpiece, just sitting in the Odunpazarı area in Eskişehir. And the project belongs to Errol Tabanca, the art collector of Polymax. So it's a great project. Thank you so much for such efforts for creating this design. So I would like to ask another question about Japan. According to Japan's geographical information, and also with the fact that Japan is located in the northwest of Pacific Ocean, and the country is facing rapid tsunami and earthquakes, what do you think the role of architects would be to face this challenge and to prevent these kind of natural, let's call disasters?
Yes. As a Japan has geographically, it is a very tough place. As a, and also the topography of Japan is very complicated, and so we have few flat land. The 70% of the Japan is mountain, but
Right.
but historically, we Japanese has been trying to live in a limited space,
Mm-hmm.
as a, as a, in a dense space, but still we try to find some as a really comfortable human space, and it's a big challenge. If we have the big land to have that kind of comfortable space was easy, but Japan very dense. But still, we try to find the
Right.
solution, have condition. And also, every 60, 70 years, we have big earthquake, a big tsunami, and we should live rebuild the city every 60 and 70 years. And then the two challenges, density and disasters, and but those two difficulties as a, as a, as a, as a, was the mother of creativity of Japanese architectural design. And Japanese architectural design is very creative and very innovative, as I think, because of two tough conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And we have many interesting systems. So, for example, we have the perfect ventilation system. And we, without any machine, the small space in Japanese house is very comfortable. And we have a very special method to bring natural light into the very deep space. And the natural wind and the natural light is always we can feel in the small space. And and that is a method, that wisdom is the basis of my design. I learned many things from those design. And it is very different from the masonry structure in Europe and in other countries. The masonry was a method to cut. But the Japanese system is to bring nature into dense space.
Right. Actually, this was my next question as well. How do you define Japanese contemporary architecture? Is there any point that you want to add to this question as well? As a Japanese architect, how do you define Japanese architecture, contemporary architecture?
Yeah, the Japanese as a Japanese modernism it's started 1945 after Second World War.
Right. Dear Kuma? Dear Kengo Kuma? I think we lost connection. We can wait for a couple of minutes, maybe. Hello.
Hello again.
Sorry. Hello again. No, it's okay.
Sorry about I came back.
It's okay. It happens. No problem. We get used to it. So you were talking about Japan's contemporary architecture, and after the Second World War.
Yes, the Second World War, before Second World War and the World War, still the Japan has that kind of tradition to live with nature, but after 1945, the concrete cultures, the concrete technology came to Japan.
Right.
And it was shocking, and it looked very beautiful. Concrete building looked very beautiful for Japanese. It's very new. It's very strong, and then from 1945 to year 2000, the 50, 60 years, the Japanese modern architectures was trying to catch up the beauty of concrete building, like the Tadawando and Isozaki, as a Kenzo Tange. The goal of those architects was the monumental concrete sculpture.
Exactly.
But after 2000, something new is happening, and instead of concrete, we try to achieve transparency. The transparency also was very important in Japanese tradition. And then another trend was beginning after year 2000. the Toyoitos, Sejimas, those people are trying to go to transparency. And
Exactly.
I myself, I really like transparency. So I really want to create a new type of transparency, but with natural material. And and then it is difficult to define the contemporary Japanese building, Japanese design, but the transparency and nature are the keywords of Japanese contemporary design.
Right, exactly. I would like to get one question from one of our audience. So just for 5 seconds. Martin LT asks, who were your biggest influences in architecture?
Influence?
Yes, who were your biggest influences in architecture?
So I was very much influenced by Frank Lloyd Wright. Do you know?
Great. Yes.
Yeah, because Frank Lloyd Wright he loved Japan very much. He designed Imperial Hotel, the old Imperial Hotel, the 93, and he learned many things from Japan at that time, and also he tried to mix the modernity and Japaneseness.
Right.
And he's the kind of president of my direction, and I learned many things from him. He is, and also his passion for the material and the special detail is a kind of crazy passion. I want to learn
Exactly. Right. Okay, we have another question. Just 1 second. John Smith asks, what was your biggest challenges during the design processes? What are your challenges?
Yes, as I always want to find the new Kengo Kuma.
Definitely, this happens always in the next project.
Yeah, as a former generation architects, like Suzaki, and those architects, as establish their own style at the beginning of, and they repeat their style. It's a kind of fashion brand. If the fashion brand's identity was established, after it's just a repeat. Whereas, but in the era of the internet, the people always want to find some new identity. But so for me is to find new Kengo Kuma is exciting. The to repeat myself is very boring, but of course it's not easy to find new Kengo Kuma.
Exactly.
But luckily, so we have new site. So if I go to the site, I can find some new condition. I can find some new neighbors. I can find some new unique clients. And then it is very exciting as a relationship with new site.
Exactly. Actually, I would like to ask about the architecture of previous century and the architecture of today. Previously, architects were just following a certain kind of style, like modernism, like postmodernism, or whatever came after that. But till 2000, architects were just trying to catch up a certain kind of style and work on that style. But nowadays, every architect has its own style, and they are a brand for themselves, and they are not following for whatever they do in this project, maybe they don't do on the other project. They are not following any certain kind of styles, and they all have their own styles. What is your comment for this situation, and what do you think if it is good for the future of architecture to emphasize on architects, not architecture, than architecture to architects?
I think this is a is a very good as a phenomena for architects.
Yes.
Because it's not necessary to see other people's building.
Right.
And I think this is a change make the situation more democratic.
Mm-hmm.
As a people can say anything, people can create anything, so freely. Before as a year 2000, we should follow some dominant design direction, and in modernism period we should follow modernism.
Right.
Period we should follow the postmodernism dogma. It's very dogmatic, and it is politically it is very unhealthy. But now we can do anything. We can create anything. And also, I think as in futures, anybody can design architecture by themselves. So more democratic situation will happen. Now the architects can design building, but in future, everybody can design their own building.
Right.
I think
Right.
we are in the process to go to that kind of situation.
Yeah. Actually, to add to your point that in the future everybody will just design their own buildings, how do you think today's technologies like computational tools, artificial intelligence, these 3D printing kinds of construction, we are bringing 3D printings to our construction sites. How do you think these technologies will affect architecture in the future? And the point that you said, everybody is just going to design their own architecture buildings. Do you think this is the point that architecture is going to that direction?
Yeah. That is the point. As in futures, the people, everybody can make their own building by a kind of 3D printing, and the 3D printing is very democratic technology, and also and it's not expensive. And
Exactly.
and there's a and and also now 3D printing is only using the plastic or some material, but in futures, so any kind of material can be applied to 3D printing system, and then the 3D printing is showing us the future of architectural design.
Mm-hmm. Right. We have a question from one of our followers as well. Julia asks, how do you think contemporary architecture can be a tool to face emergencies like these pandemic situations, and temporary architecture, like building temporary hospitals? Do you think, how do you think contemporary architecture can answer to these questions and challenges?
Yeah, for the COVID-19, the ventilation is very important, and create some the screen between human is very important. And as we already have the technology, and we already have the design which can solve that the pandemic. And but integration has not done yet. So if we can combine those technology, so we can combine those design, so we can solve this situation. And there's some political leaders can collaborate with us in a smart way, so we can integrate those technology and engineering and the new social system, and it is not difficult. And some new leaders are necessary.
Right. So you are also an educator. You are teaching, and you are a professor of architecture at the University of Tokyo. What, with these experiences, what do you think is architecture? What is good architecture?
Yeah, I have been teaching in Tokyo University in the last 10 years, is to integrate hands and computer again.
Like craft and digital, right?
Yes. And before, some professors only pushing students to computers, and some professors pushing students back to hands-on craftsmanship. And but I try to integrate those two things. I have been making some small unique pavilion with student,
Right.
and I try to change the architectural education, and
Right.
it is on the way. But the Tokyo University studied the new research center, and the goal of that new research centers is to combine those two opposite things.
Right. What is it? Sorry, just 1 second. So what inspires you in daily life?
Fires.
Inspires.
Right. Yeah. I try to feel the voice of place, and then for every project, I try to walk on the site, and I want to feel the earth from my foot. And some clients send me the video and there's many images, and then saying, please start the project without coming to the site. Especially in the pandemic, so in this pandemic, some clients, but without going to the place, I cannot feel inspiration of the site, because the architecture is a kind of conversation with us, and then I should go by myself with my foot, and then site.
That's great. Thank you. We have a question from one of our audience as well. I will just pop it up right here. So Xerox asks, what is the demerit of 3D technology? How do you use it in your projects?
Yeah, our way of using 3D technology is different from some other architects. some other architects are using 3D technology to create unique silhouette. They started from the unique silhouette, and then the material and structure.
Right.
Whereas our way is totally opposite. We started from the joint. We started from how to join the unit, how to assemble the unit. And then the start from part and the whole and the silhouette is the final result of the long process. And then it is a totally as opposite from normal way, from whole to part. Our way of from part to whole. And for that kind of assembly system, and the computer is very helpful. As we are check as a possible dimension, and also we are working with structural engineers as on the same platform.
Right.
And as if we find a new way of as a joint, new way of I pass that information to structural engineer, and as on the same platform, so we are designing together with structural engineer, and then without that kind of platform, so we can't achieve that kind of complex as assembly system.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, that's the great features of 3D softwares these days, like softwares like Revit that enable to work in a collaborative environment with other disciplines as well. So it's a unique features that this software has. So as closer with all these experiences in architecture, and you've been in practice an educator, what kind of advice would you like to share with young architects and students?
As for young architects, my advice is to use your own hands, and from hands, and we can feel material, and as hands we can feel the winds and the light, and if we forget our own hands, so we cannot create any architecture, and then I always advise them to use your own hands. The brain, not so necessary. Hands more important.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Thank you so much for joining to this conversation. I really appreciate your time. Do you have any final words to say to our audience?
Come to Tokyo as soon as possible. I'm waiting for you. Come.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Thanks for your time. Goodbye. Goodbye. Dear Taichi, I think Taichi would just. Okay. Thank you so much for joining to this live session, guys. I appreciate your time, and please stay tuned with us with more upcoming interviews like this. Till then, stay safe and stay goodbye.